And this section is entitled Christ's Letter to the Church in Pergamum. And so in our King James text, the city is called Pergamus, but in Turkey it is called Pergamum. And I assume that it is that is the correct spelling. Darrell has this underscored. The church in Pergamum is representative of the church history during the period of approximately AD 314 to AD 590. I call it paganism, unlimited, because and Darrell continues to underscore here, during this time, the world entered into the church and it began to move away from the person of Christ. This letter was Christ's message to the local church at Pergamum, of course, but it also was has this historical significance. First, let me give you the location of Pergamum. Izmir is the great city where tourists go because the airport and the hotels are there. You go about 65 miles south to reach Ephesus and about 70 miles north to reach Pergamum. These three were the royal cities, and they vied one with another. Smyrna, it's Izmir, was the great commercial center. Ephesus was the great political center, and Pergamum was the great religious center. Pergamum was the capital of the kingdom of Pergamum. The Acropolis still stands there, and the ruins of the great temples of the city are on top of it. It was a city in Mysia, labeled by Pliny by far the most illustrious of Asia. It is one of the most beautiful spots in Asia Minor. Sir William Ramsay says that it was the one city that deserved to be called a royal city. In it was the temple built to Caesar Augustus, which made it a royal city. Augustus came to this beautiful area when the climate got cold in Rome. There was a healing spa there. It was not the commercial city that Smyrna was, because it was not a seacoast town, and it was off uh, the great trade routes which came out of the Orient. But it was a fortified, stronghold city built to withstand the enemy. It was built on a mountain, and the Acropolis dominated the whole region and of the broad plain of Caicus. The original city was built between the two rivers, which flowed into the Caicus and entirely surrounded the huge rocky hill. This promontory that stood out there alone. To visit it makes quite an impression. First, you see that great mountain standing there, and you see the ruins on top. Not only did Pergamum boast great temples, but it also had the great library of the pagan world. That's what I drew out of it. It's there's those who worship education, and so I've seen those. They'll get one degree and they get another degree. They're like a professional idiot. They go to school all their life, never stop. Anyway, it is a library of over 200,000 volumes. In fact, the city got its name from the parchment Pergamena, which was used. The great library was the one which Mark Antony gave to his girlfriend Cleopatra. She logged it off to Alexandria in Egypt, and that library was considered the greatest library the world has ever known. Uh, and it was originally from Pergamum. If you remember, it got burnt. The library in Alexandria got burnt, and we lost all of that knowledge. If you are ever in Istanbul and go to Hagia Sophia, you will see there a great alabaster vase, taller than I am, and I think of beauty, which was brought there from Pergamum. Of course, the city of Pergamum was rifled and uh, denuded by the enemy when they finally took the city and destroyed it. Verse 12, and to the angel of the church in Pergamus, write, these things saith he which hath the sharp sword with two edges. Revelation chapter 2 and verse 12. To the angels of the church in Pergamus. This letter is addressed, as were other letters, to the angel or messenger of the church, which was probably the one we would call the pastor. Darrell has this underscored. These things saith he which hath the sharp sword with two edges, means the word of God. The word of God as the answer to man's needs and man's sins, which in Pergamum was false religion. It was a city that emphasized religion, and the only way it could be reached would be by the word of God. And that concludes